What's up, everyone? It's Jeff here. Got something that I want to kind of just share with you that's on my mind, and maybe I can make some sense out of this for you. Don't know. But you know, I was at a men's breakfast at church a few weeks ago, and there was a gentleman there that said, you know, if you see me very busy and I'm not socializing very much, I'm fighting off some negative feelings of depression that's trying to set in and anxiety that's trying to set in. And I can relate to that so much, because if I don't keep myself going and keep myself busy, that leaves room for me to get in my own mind. That gives room for negative and thoughts to come in. You know, idle mind is the devil's workshop. And it's good for us to be busy. It's good for us to be doing things, but it's also not good for us to be too busy. We're usually one or the other. Usually I catch myself being a little too busy, and that brings problems of its own as well. But I kind of want to tell a story here, and I'll try to go somewhere with this, if I can. Just kind of doing a walk and talk today. My granddaddy was born in 1921. And when I was growing up, one of my favorite things to do with him was we'd sit out in his yard out in the country where he lived, on the very land that he was born and he grew up on and he died on. And I used to love when he would just tell me stories about his life. And I've took some of those stories and thought about them and how they apply to just practical things in life. But he said, I had this old horse. He said, you know, the closest store we had was about 6 miles away. He said, I'd get a hankering to go up there sometimes. He said, I'd get on that old horse. He said, if I didn't get him tied good, he said, I'd come out of the store and he'd be gone. He said, so I'd have to take off walking. He said, when I got home, he said, I'd find that old horse standing in the barn. He'd be there. He said that horse knew his way home. He said, I didn't even have to really hold the reins when I was riding him unless I wanted to go a different direction. He said, he always knew, I'm gonna change hands here. He always knew how to get home. He knew his way. So that brings me to this point right here about our struggles in our minds and our thoughts. I'm hitting on a lot of different things, I guess, and I'm sorry if the wind's blowing, making mic noise. I'm gonna quit rambling here. Let's get back to it. Oh me. Anyway, our thoughts and different things, we get to living on what we feel instead of what we know. Years ago, I heard that statement, and I was like, what does that really mean? Living on what I feel and instead of what I know? I mean, don't we base decisions on feelings? Well, yes, we do. But if we would make decisions, I've had to learn this for myself, making decisions on what I know instead of what I feel, the outcome usually comes out a whole lot better for me. Because when I make a decision on what I'm feeling, something somebody says to me or a situation can cause me to react in such a way that's not the best outcome. Sometimes there's some bad repercussions that come from the living on how I feel. Because just to give you one example, is if I know if I have an angry outburst at something or somebody, especially if it's somebody that I'm close to, a coworker, a friend, a family member, that's going to bring some conflict in between our relationship. It's going to damage that relationship. It's going to break some trust in that relationship. And it's going to bring some weird feelings when you're around that person. And then if you do it more than once, they're going to be thinking, you know what? That guy right there, he's a little bit of a hothead. He flies off the handle a little bit too much. And I just don't trust him. I'm not going to share things with him. I'm not going to put a whole lot of trust in him. So to me, living off of what we feel has a lot of backlash. You know, I feel like buying that right there. It feels good. So I'm just going to charge it on this credit card. Well, you're going to get a bill. You feel like buying that truck right there or that car right there you can't afford. Well, then when that first payment comes and you got to pay those taxes and that tag and that insurance, it don't feel so good anymore. Just going to sit down here for a minute. So, living on what we know that we should be more wiser. We know not to have those angry outbursts, that if something is setting us off or whatever, and that reaction, we need to take a step back and look at this thing. Is this really necessary for me? Is this going to change anything in this situation? Or is this going to make things worse? What about this right here? I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I ask for forgiveness later. Well, that might be a hard pill to swallow. Because, you know, a lot of our decisions and living on what we know, the repercussions can have a ripple effect throughout our life. You know, one bad decision can affect us for the rest of our lives. One bad decision can affect us for many years to come. And take a long time to recoup from that. So to get back to the original thing that I was kind of talking about with my granddaddy's horse was this, is that when we live on what we feel instead of what we know, we lose our way. We lose our way. See, my granddaddy, if he'd have tied that horse to that hitching post, that horse would have not forgotten its way home, but it would have been tied to that hitching post. And until he's untied or he breaks loose, he can't go home. So if we are tied to living on what we feel instead of what we know, we're tied to the hitching post of our reactions, the hitching post of our feelings, instead of breaking free from that and living on what we know. Because when we lose that living on what we know, we lose our way home. We lose our way in life. And it can make things really hard on us. And it can bring on some depression, some fear, and anxiety. I've lived that. I have felt that. I lost my way home for a long time in my life. And when I catch myself sliding into that state of depression and not staying busy and staying focused and having meaning and purpose for life, when I start feeling that, I got to go for a walk. I gotta be thinking, hey, quit living on your feelings, Jeff. Live on what you know. Live on what you know. Get in the Word of God and start digging it out. Live on your past experiences, on things that you know that you lived on, the feelings of, and what it brought to your life. It brought things you don't want. Don't do it again. Don't make the same mistakes again. Live off the knowledge and the wisdom of life has taught you, the lessons it's taught you. Don't lose your way home. I'm going to finish this walk. Y'all have a good day.